We're back in the studio with Roy O'Connor, who's our representative on the Board of Directors. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about what the Board of Directors is doing. But this is a call-in portion. And we want you to make sure you call in and ask Roy any of the questions you have about the Board of Directors at 703-663-3333. And Roy, welcome.
Good morning, Yvonne.
We're ready for all of your insight.
Well, good to see you today. You know, last month we spoke and
Yes.
We briefly covered the organization. And
Right.
We had a chart that we showed showed the board and its relationship to management. And I think it's something which you can't talk about too many times.
That's right, because there are always new people moving in
Right.
who don't understand the whole system.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not too straightforward. I mean, even
Right.
after you say it once. But you know, when you think about the board, their responsibilities really fall in four main areas. Okay, one of them is what we call governance. Governance, and you hear that word, and you say, well, what does that mean? And essentially, it means that the board really is responsible to really ensure that the standards of living, the standards of health care are maintained for our current residents, as well as look into the future. That will continue that.
Okay.
And so it's part of our responsibility to make sure that from a fiduciary standpoint, we have the finances to support the facilities here and the programs we have today and also into the future. Again, you know, we had to have an increase on our rates this
Yes,
year.
I know.
And nobody likes to see that, but costs go up. And if you want to maintain what you're doing, because we want to ensure not just standards, but the quality of life of the residents is good. So that's an overriding sort of governance responsibility.
Now, how many Erickson communities is the board
Right now,
concerned with?
there are 16 that
This board is
No, this
concerned.
board is only responsible for, well, let me come back to that again.
Okay.
We have the National Senior Campuses, which is a supporting board that covers all 16.
Right.
But then we have a regional board.
So there's 16 Erickson communities.
Yes.
Okay.
And we only deal with, they only deal with Erickson communities. It's called National Senior Campuses. And then we have a regional board, which is just the South region,
Okay.
which is 4 communities today.
Oh, okay.
Riderwood, Oak Crest, Green Spring, and Ashby Ponds.
Okay. So that's the board. The
That's
board
the
you're
regional
on
board.
is ours.
Well, technically, I'm on the Green Spring Board of Directors,
Okay.
which is one of the 4 community boards.
Okay.
I'm a member of that board. It happens that I serve on 2 NSC board committees.
Oh, okay.
Because they asked me to do that.
Okay.
You know, the investment committee.
So
and,
you have your finger in the little bigger pot.
Yeah, on that. Because the National Senior Campuses, they do all what I call the heavy work. There's 6 committees, and they do a lot of research, a lot of independent study, and then they give that information to all 16 community boards
Okay.
for their use and however they want to use it, and the guidance that comes from it. But anyway, so that's one area. The other area is, second area is compliance. We have to comply with a lot of federal and state laws.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And we have to ensure that we're meeting those standards. You know, a lot of the health care in Garden Ridge and also in our certified home health is paid by Medicare. So those are funds that have to be carefully monitored, and there's a lot of rules and regulations.
Remember, this is a call-in show. We need those calls. Roy's sitting here waiting for them.
And numbers on the board there. So compliance is important. And it's not just to meet the minimum. It's, you know, comply ethically as well as meet the rules and regulations.
Right.
So in that, one of the major things is every board member has what we call a duty of care.
Okay.
So what does that mean? That means that, like myself and the other 10 members that are on our board, have to kind of look at things in the community and act in a way that they feel would be a reasonable response to that. In other words, are we doing things the way they should be done? And so ethically as well as from a rules and regulation standpoint. But again, it's our duty to make sure that that's happening. We kind of look over the shoulder of management. Management is employed by the board to manage the community. We're not going to do that the day-to-day, but we want to make sure that it's being done. Okay, and so the third area really is we have to be aware then of what's happening in the community.
Okay.
So we get feedback from management, we get feedback from the residents. You know,
How do you get the feedback from the residents?
one of the big ways is a resident survey once a year. That goes to the board as well as to management. And, you know, we didn't touch on that last month, but the 2016 survey showed Green Spring did slip a little bit in what we call the overall satisfaction question from 15 to 16. 0.8 or something as you review it. So it wasn't major, but it did slip a little. But on continuing care, I'm happy to report that it went up quite a bit in both skilled nursing and assisted living.
Good.
So that's a barometer, and there's a lot of input there. There's a lot of write-in comments from residents. So the board gets that information along with management.
Is there any other way they get information?
Well, the other big thing, that's a good question, is whenever the board comes, they try to meet, for example, well, twice a year as a minimum, we meet with the residents in our town hall meetings. Usually in May, the annual meeting. December, we just had the board town hall, which went over the budget. We also meet with the resident council. And a new thing that we're doing this year, I'm really glad you brought that up, is we have the Community Relations Committee. And I don't know if you remember, but that's a 3-person committee from the board. In our case, it's Jackson Bain, who's president of our board, Betty Price, and myself as resident director. And it's our job to spend more time at the community than maybe the other board members, so that we can understand what's happening. And just this past Monday, we met with the resident council and the executive management, Chandra Kumar and Brian Marandola. So we had a real nice meeting, about an hour and a half, and discussed a whole bunch of things. It was a really good exchange. I think what was of interest to a lot of the council members was we talked about the vision committee of the NSC board, and Jackson happens to be also chair of that committee. And they're looking at 2030.
Okay.
You know, kind of what's it going to be like out there?
In
What will be the
3
demands
years.
on a community like that?
Another 13 years.
Yeah. And what will we have to do? And what will the competition be doing? What will be the things that the boomers want when they get here?
Or the millennials.
Not that far.
Not that far.
Turn of the century, right? Yeah. But yeah. So through meetings like that, and then informally between the quarterly board meetings, usually myself and Jackson and Betty will come down and meet with the executive management and also the leaders in the council.
So actually the way the individual resident would get word up would be to go through the resident council.
That's the ideal route, and except for those couple times a year when we do come.
Right.
And like last year in May afterwards, we had a little wine and cheese reception, you know, with the residents. We had a couple hundred people, you know, in the hall,
Right.
so people had a chance to
And they
mingle.
bent your ear very
One-on-one
well, I would
answer
think.
any
Right.
questions that they had.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the other
Right.
means. So it's, again, that's that third major area of being aware of what's going on and maintaining that awareness. So again, we get the feedback from management, we get it from the resident survey, we get it from our visits here all the time.
Where are those phone calls? Surely somebody has a question for Roy. 703-663-3333.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the same people. You know, we were in Hunter's yesterday. You know, and I was a member of the.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
I didn't get over there for
Oh
that.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did Family Feud, and
Right.
And the council and myself were kind of a different role, but much fun on Valentine's Day. The last area is really the long-term financial health, the vision and strategic plan. I kind of alluded to that a little bit in the
Yes.
beginning, but really that's our other, not just to look at what's going on today, but for the future. And the Vision Committee is doing a great job of doing research and providing that to the board. And again, you know, it's interesting as we go forward, because while there's concern that this next generation coming in, you know, maybe They're not going to have the pensions like the people that live here now.
That's true.
They're not going to have maybe the equity in the homes because they move around so much. Will they be able to afford to even move in? Well, if you look at the numbers, there's something like 79 or 80 million boomers. And there's only like half that number in what they call the silent generation, you know, the
Right.
World War II
Right.
And pre-World War II. And so even if you only did 10% of that 80 million, that's 8 million people. But today, you know, last week Stephen Magg was here from Leading Age, and he said there's only a little over 800,000 people who live in CCRCs across the United States, 800,000. So we're talking about 10% of 80 million boomers, right?
Right.
That could be 8 million right there. So
Of course, the boomers have a whole different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because they're very active, and,
Right.
and they want to continue to be active, and we need to
very
meet
much
that
so.
need.
Right.
And I'm not sure we're set up for that
Well,
right
that's
now.
that's the other aspect too,
Right.
right? Exactly. It's a big difference,
The
right?
running clubs and all these things, right?
They want things, and they want them when they want them,
That's true.
and they want them the way they want them. So
right.
that's a little different maybe than what we're used to. But I think that you know, we're in a great place here at Green Spring. It's a thriving community. Had an outstanding year in 2016. You know, it's I think as we go forward, there's lots of things coming. Next month we're probably going to break ground on Garden Ridge.
Oh, are you? It's finally coming.
That's what I hear, so stand by, but I think there'll be some information coming forward on that.
Very
They've
good.
already begun to do some of the ancillary areas, you know, the upgrade to those
Right.
in Garden Ridge.
Right.
So that's our first big repositioning project. And, you know, we'll be paying for that from our own funds,
Right.
our cash flow plus our reserve. So residents don't have to worry about any additional, you know, fee or anything for that, because that's one of the nice things about putting the money ahead to take care of these things.
Sure.
A lot of people can see the improvements going on now. We're putting new windows in.
Right.
That'll be followed by new doors, sliding glass doors. And we plan to do 2 neighborhoods this year, neighborhood
Good.
1 and 2.
Good.
And then the next one will be next year. That's all covered in, you know, in our capital plans. So, you know, these things will happen. We're 18 years old. We opened in 1998, and so 19th anniversary coming up this November. And so things start to wear out.
Yes, they do. Yes, they
yeah,
do.
there's-
Most homeowners are doing a
Yeah.
full renovation by that time.
Exactly. So, but it's something you have to do, and we have plans for our regular life cycle renovations. You have to do that. You have to have the community looking really good, so when people come and they see it, they want to live here. you know.
Right, right.
You know, but another thing that's important on that, not to divert a little bit, is the residents can really help. I mean, when we have our marketing events, we have the resident ambassadors, you know, who greet prospective residents. And that's better than advertising, because
Oh, yes.
they're not paid to do that. They volunteer.
Right.
And so they're going to tell it as it is.
It's always interesting to talk with someone who's visiting and to hear their questions that they would never ask marketing, but they'll ask a resident.
Yes, right. And I think in most cases, the residents are going to give them an honest answer.
Right.
And generally, they're very, very positive. You know.
Right, they are.
One that I hear often is, you know, we never hear anybody who says they moved here too soon. But
Right.
you do hear people say, I
They
wish
moved
I
too
came
late.
sooner.
Right.
Because it's, and I think that's something we need to work on going forward, the Yerkes and Company, in terms of advertising all the things that really happen here. You know, the really.
We could just get rid of the name retirement.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we ought to change it to Green Spring Living, Green Spring, Green Spring Living. You know, that's part of our
Sure,
our
right.
logo because there's so much going on.
It's a gated senior community.
Exactly.
It's- yeah.
So I think that word is starting to filter down, but I think we could do more in our advertising to do it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Roy. I'm sorry we didn't get any calls. We're going to start doing more call-ins, I think. So remember that you have the ear of those that you want to hear from. So be sure you take advantage of these call-ins. Let's see what our programming is for some of our future